So, hello and welcome. First of all, hello and welcome to everybody watching us. So, this is the Wednesday weekly live show by the AI Guild called The Highest Standard, revolving around topics to do with AI, with data careers, with people having data careers in the field, in roles such as data analytics, data science, but also computer vision and NLP. We're very happy to have with us today Anthony Kelly, who is particularly active in the field of recruiting for computer vision. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, Chris. Hello, everyone.
Okay, so we have the chance today to speak for 20, 30 minutes about topics around recruiting and hiring, how candidates can prepare, but also actually about computer vision and perhaps trends in the field. And perhaps, Anthony, that's how we can start. So you could say a few words about yourself, please, and then move on to how do you see the field of computer vision especially evolving at the moment?
Yeah, perfect. So I think I started in recruitment. It must be about 6.5 years ago. I started off doing QA and test automation recruitment in Dublin for Irish-based candidates. Chanced my arm at Australia, came back after 3 months, and then about 3 years ago, I started doing recruitment for Germany. Initially, starting off at looking at all the markets and data, so everything from BI, data analytics, to data science, NLP, data engineering, and machine learning. I was doing that with my previous employer, and I quickly realized, like many data scientists or data engineers out there, you have to be specialized because it's a black hole of different tasks, and there's often conflict of what's a data engineer job, what's a data science job. But I was trying to recruit everything, and it was nearly impossible. So when I moved to Trust and Soda just over a year ago, I decided I was just going to do computer vision. And since then, I'm now the team lead of a data recruitment function. There's five of us, all specializing in each one of those verticals that I was trying to do all by myself. So we've got someone doing data engineering, someone doing data science and machine learning, someone doing BI and data analytics, and we've got another consultant who looks after product owners and product managers focusing on data and AI, and then myself doing computer vision. But
Great, great.
uh,
In that you're doing it. So the field is young. We've been around for 10 years. Very often in the early days, people were the lone data scientist. This is for sure no longer the case. So you're doing computer vision. What kind of trends do you see, and how big do teams get at the moment?
yeah, so I mean, computer vision, as long as it's still one of like the longest running data science and AI technologies, it's still the one that's probably most in its infancy. And I think I've got quite a I've got a unique point of view on this, and I've got a lot of experience from speaking with some people who've been in computer vision before it was even called computer vision, from doing my
Hmm.
podcast show. And I've actually been able to ask them, what's really truly changed, and what's made computer vision really really hype, I guess. And not to say that it is hype, because there's actually a lot of valuable stuff coming out of it, but it's starting to get hype, right? There was the first one that we never actually, still to this day, haven't really seen the benefits of, or some end product from, which would have been autonomous driving. And the reason why I don't want to talk about that too much is because it was kind of like a, we're still working on it, but there's a lot of actual good computer vision products in production now. And the main reason for that, and I'd say that the trend that's really hotted up for me, is the fact that of recent you're able to move from running your algorithms on a device or a Raspberry Pi to now being able to run it on an edge device. And with that, we're seeing a lot of products come in computer vision that are actually running on people's mobile phones, that are running on Android tablets, Apple tablets, or any sort of device that can be physically moved. And that's allowing for a lot more innovation, and a lot more products to be built and come into production in many respects. You've got security facial recognition when you try to sign into Revolut or into your Binance account, right? You've got people being counted as they go in and out of shops, to keep a cap on the social distancing in your local IKEA and Aldi, right? So that's all stuff being run on a mobile phone or on a security camera.
Okay, so you're saying there are more applications. There are actually more applications in real life that are also valuable to companies. Going back to the question, so I mean, have you, is there a lot more hiring in computer vision? Are there now, have you seen substantial teams? What's the team size? Three or more 30?
Yeah, definitely more along the lines of tree, right? I'm facing that. I want to host events in Germany again, but I used to host them with bigger companies on more broader data science topics and go to like Zalando, Get Your Guide. There's no big computer vision company in Germany, maybe not worldwide. The big ones are your autonomous driving companies, but that's a section of a team. I am starting to see companies go out where their core product is a computer vision product. And the way a software engineering company would have a team of back end developers, maybe like 5 or 6 as a startup, you can actually see startup computer vision companies be 10 people and 6 of them might be computer vision. And that's because they're driven by computer vision. Whereas if it's a smaller subset of your company, you might be in a team of maybe 1 or 2 colleagues in that sense. But there's definitely a big growth market. I think I remember reading something. I think it was by in Forbes, one of their magazines. Is they expect by 2025 the computer vision market will be at the same size as Java.
Okay, that's considerable.
That's a lot of growth, right? And that's just because there's so many business use cases that it can be used for. It's such an area of innovation as well.
Okay, got it. Um, so we have an idea of a growing market. We have an idea of team sizes still being small but getting bigger. Can you tell us something about hiring? So, how does hiring in the field work at the moment?
Yeah, so I suppose in some cases it's quite similar to many generic data science, machine learning recruitment processes. Starts off with a CV screen. Well, sorry, it starts off with your application going in, then to a CV screen. If you're selected for an interview, you tend to get your first interview. Many respects, it's a get to know. Hey, do you like us? Do we like you? As a culture, as a person, do you like our product? Can you tell us what we do and what you've done? If you can do that well enough, let's go to technical stages. Um, the one thing I would say is different is there is no, well, not many companies I see actually use like take home technical assignments in computer
Mhm.
vision. It's more
Okay.
so technical interviews face to face. Again, I think that comes down to the market being a lot smaller. If you wait a week and there's a good candidate and you have a technical test, he's just going to go and interview in places that don't, and you could potentially just miss the chance to interview that
Okay.
candidate. So it's
Okay.
it's more driven by lack of talents, whereas data science was very cool. Everyone wanted to get into it maybe 4 years ago. Whereas now, yes, everyone's hiring, but now they've all said, right, we're going to introduce a bar to say you have to be better than this bar to get into our business. Whereas that means they've added long, drawn out processes for 4 to 6 stages in many cases. Whereas in computer vision, I could see anything between 2 to 3 being quite normal with no take home tests.
So you're actually okay. So in some sense, computer vision still is a more of a candidates market. Well, whereas
100%.
yes, yeah. So whereas yes, so something that I'm sure you've also heard is precisely this going through 6 rounds and being annoyed with a bar that then sometimes actually doesn't turn out to be such a great bar. But the idea of doing technical testing, okay, understood. Um, Interesting. So there's this part where people get hired, and then there's of course the part where people work for companies. And we know that overall in the field, people staying in companies, changing jobs, retention, and such issues are an issue in the sense that people often change frequently, and of course it's also often easy to change frequently. So among practitioners, right, a well-worn story is that they get so many recruiting requests per week that they're tempted to shut down their LinkedIn account because it's too much. Yeah. So
Maybe if they're unrelevant.
yes, we can, of course, we can debate the finer details. I get it, but I'm trying to use this as an intro to actually ask you, because you're in the recruiting business, so you also see people changing jobs. So what do you observe on the front of companies holding on to their experts and talents, retention, people wanting to stay with a company? What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the first thing I'd start off in saying is there's in software, there's probably not a single bad company to work for, right? Everyone's very well paid, definitely more than what would be an average salary in any country, right? The working hours can be quite preferential. So it does make you think, why do these people change jobs every 6, 9, 12, 18 months?
Okay, so now I want to know.
So what it is like I done an event on this, and I held it with a head of HR and three business founders or three team managers. And I suppose what we broke it down to is are you an organization that builds rock stars in-house? And that comes down to a multitude of different factors. So it can be L&D. So do you look at your process of L&D? Is when someone joins your company L&D? Oh, it's just we've got an €8,000 yearly budget. You can use it, but you just go to events, but you never get to actually implement anything.
L&D, learning and development,
Learning and
right?
development. Yeah,
Training
yeah.
budgets. Okay, yes, great.
Training
Okay,
budget. So
yeah.
many companies, like, I mean, if you came back and you wanted to do something on a neural network, let's say a ResNet or a UNet, you got massively inspired by a conference or by a talk you've been to or a training you've done, you come back to your business and you're like, yeah, do you know what? I think we could do this. If we applied it on this data set, in theory, it will improve our overall performance. And they're like, let's just leave it as it is now. If it's not broken, why fix it, right? That's what I would say is a bad learning and development environment. But what
Okay,
ideally you want
interesting.
to do, and the term I call it is it's create a safe learning environment, right? It's you can set people up to fail, not to fail, but allow them to fail. You want to be an enabler of L&D and an enabler of someone's development, because it goes to a level of giving more of an intrinsic motivator to someone than money. If someone's happy with their money, but the work is okay, they will open that LinkedIn message. But if money doesn't matter to them because they're just really enjoying the work, they're really enjoying the development, they can see and feel themselves getting better on a regular basis. That will be someone who'll shut down their LinkedIn. They won't even open a message, right? And that's just one part of it. You've also got performance management. Is a company actually performing managing their engineers, or is it a monthly review to just say, yeah, how you doing? Are you happy? Perfect, thank you. Instead of setting up, maybe like being a coach, introducing something like that can happen. Um, and then even going back and looking at, what could we do better? I know we're going to look at obviously things right now is flexi time, working from home, but again, they might not always be necessary to an individual. Some people might want something else, and I can't even comment for everyone, but there's some people that flexi time is not important to, that they just want a 4-day working week. But they'd rather make up the hours on another day, but you don't know that unless you ask. And those are sort of key characteristics that when it comes to retention, I would say they're not talked about enough. Um, when people look at retention, they're like, "Oh, why would you leave us? We've got great healthcare, we've got great benefits, we've got fruit in the office, we've got free beers." You know?
Yes. It actually interesting what you said. So I just want to double check also for our audience. So the first thing that you said, I would translate as, if you're good and you know what you're doing and you're looking for your first, second, third role, one of the things you should really pay attention to is what kind of L&D budget, what kind of training budget does the company actually offer you. And you had an interesting figure, kind of like, like 8,000. So this is the thing, I sometimes hear of like 500 or so, yeah, or maybe 2,000, but actually it's interesting. So you want to retain your experts and your talents, offer them sizable stuff. So we're talking up to 10 perhaps. And that actually makes the difference. Number one. Number two, you said is also something we know, kind of like, people quit their managers. I mean, they quit the company, but they actually also quit the managers and the management system. So pay attention to your company culture and how you manage performance and how people get feedback. And that's number two, if I got it right. And number three, you said, is actually, so to speak, the nitty gritty of the daily working conditions. Ask your people how they would really prefer it and see if you can tailor it to their needs.
Yeah, and then the one that I would say is very much, in my opinion, the most important, because it's something that I look to do even in my own team, is
Okay.
creating an enabling learning environment.
Okay. Okay. So supportive. So in the sense, um, um, I would paraphrase you. Yeah. Don't hire the rock star. Create the conditions for people to be rock stars for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. No matter what your
Okay.
business is, your rock stars, we were just saying, it doesn't have to be the 150K expert developer with a PhD and 10 years experience. Doesn't have to be that person. If you can get someone highly motivated, really happy, they'll deliver way more results than that person would in your business.
Okay. Great. Thank you so far. I would like to twist it a little bit, the conversation we have, twisted it, so to speak, in the pragmatic direction of people looking for a role in computer vision, a second, third, fourth role, and wondering what their next challenge could be like, and the process. And the first step, obvious, obviously, always is actually to get the interview. Yeah, before you can enjoy the interview and get a job offer, you have to get to the interview, and for that, your LinkedIn, your CV, or resume, or so are critical. Now, in your role, you actually see lots of these, probably daily, maybe 100 a week, I don't know. So if people are looking for that role and they're getting their stuff ready, what are the bad mistakes that you see, and that means that this is not going to work right away?
Yeah, and this goes for any data industry as well, whether you're BI, analytics, data science, data engineering, machine learning. Because I've followed the same sort of guidelines for the last 3 years since I've been hiring in Germany. And there's a couple of things that really stand out as just they don't work all too well. And I suppose that the very first ones would be, it's how is your CV formatted? How does it look? And I mean, there's some really bad ones that you can go for that just show that you're not serious about looking for a new job. And that would be someone who might just download their LinkedIn profile, and use that as an application. Or if you just use, maybe one of these online free tools where you just put in a couple of points, a couple of bullet points, it comes out like Europass, and there's a couple of other ones like that. Now, I'm not totally against them. I just mean, if you want to be taken seriously in your job application, from a sense, at the start you should have a serious resume, and it's your first line of it's your first line of offense. It is essentially your first stage of interview. When you look at an interview system in any organization, when they take a CV, you will start that application submitted on their tracker, and they will take you through to first interview to second interview. So internally, it's an interview stage. So treat it like an interview stage. I'd make sure that your headings are clear, your paragraphs and text are all within the same distance. All these little granular details make a big difference. It can be short, it can be concise, and I would always say, even though I just said short and concise, I do not think one page is ever enough to get across who you really are. Not in tech. Maybe in other industries, but in my opinion, a one-page CV in tech is pretty hard to convince anyone with.
Okay, thank you for that. You've spoken one to, the design, make it look professional, actually invest time in it, understand it's your first interview stage, then also kind of like go the length, understand that you need to be concise, but don't compress it so much that the other side has difficulty understanding exactly what you bring to the table. So it's going to be more like two-page CV. Okay, step further. Now let's assume I'm doing my CV and I'm sending it to you. What could I do to help myself to get noticed by you? So you get lots of these every day, and what would make a difference so that you'd rather look at mine than at, let's say, the other 59 that you're getting that day?
Yeah. Well, there's two. I suppose one thing that I look that really makes people stand out for me, and I know, and because I know when I get a CV, a good resume that's well written, I know who I can get an interview with and who I can't, right? And I will go back and I will give the candidate that I'm working with the same coaching that I'm giving here about how to write a resume. Which, if anyone wants this information, I have available on a PDF I can share, no problem. But when people write their resumes, they write them like a job spec, programming in Python, working with Kafka and Spark daily. That gives absolutely no substance to your level of skill with any of those technologies whatsoever. You could write with Python all day. You could be writing with record and click programs. You could be an admin of a platform instead of an actual developer. And unless you can make that differentiation, people will just go to the next resume. So what I mean by that is, if you're talking about how you use Python, you want to talk about how you're developing packages in it, how you're, maybe writing features in Python, PySpark, that you're using that to test the code, that's, that you've written up automated tests for, that you're then committing that code to Git, you're using Jenkins for the CI/CD pipelines, versus just saying, hey, I use Python. In addition to that, you want to write on what part of the product you're with. So, great example, if you work with Zalando, they're a huge company. They've got e-commerce teams, they've got marketing teams, front end teams, back end teams, payment teams. If you just write Zalando on your resume, they don't know. I'm not saying Zalando are obviously a great company to work for, but if you're applying for a marketing technology position in data science and you are working on the marketing technology team in Zalando, you want to be highlighting that. You want to talk about the type of models, the type of work you've done, whether it be attribution models, customer lifetime value, uh, click-through rates, anything like that, and then stuff that you can then quantify, which then takes me to my final one. The biggest differentiator of it between number one and number two is when you go in after it, you want to talk about achievements. So tangible things that you can actually quantify and say, I made this difference in this company. So if you introduced a new data pipeline, how much faster is it? How much more cost effective is it? What percentages? How much value does that add to the business? Or if you're doing it again, a data scientist, and you're working on marketing technology, you increase the click-through rates by 41%. How much percent does that increase in sales? And then you can add that as a quantifiable figure. And you can then literally show someone your CV, I made a 51% difference of improvement in my team. Here's my resume. Instead of saying, hey, yeah, I'm part of a marketing technology team. I work on customer lifetime values, attribution models, marketing mix models, right? It's a big difference, and it's not only a big difference to me. I'm sharing these resumes with the people who make decisions in the hiring
Yes.
process.
Okay. Thank you for that, Anthony. So, by the way, if you're looking to get a job in computer vision or you're looking to hire computer vision practitioners and you want to get in touch with Anthony, you'll find Anthony Kelly on LinkedIn. You can connect there and then talk to him. What I would like to do for our audience is I've been listening to you and I thought I spotted like 4 points that you were making, and let me check with you whether I got this right for everybody. So you're saying, what makes a CV stand out? I think the first one was that you said you need to be specific about your role. So about your data role, what it is exactly that you're doing. Then the next thing is you said you need to be clear also on your level of proficiency. So in a role, you're using certain tools and libraries and other such stuff, and you need to indicate your level of proficiency by showing what you've done. Number two. Then number three, you were saying it's important to show how this was relevant to the product or business. So where it kind of fitted into the bigger picture of things and what kind of differences it makes. And then your fourth point was is show your achievement, show the business outcome, show something that, not just where it's slotted in, but what difference specifically you made to the whole thing. Would that sum it up?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Um, so I think that gives people an idea when looking at their CV, that what they need to do. Now, you mentioned at the very beginning this bad idea of taking your LinkedIn profile and downloading it, kind of sending it as a PDF. So people build their CV and resume. I now want to ask the other question around. So on the one hand, of course, we still very much send PDFs around, but on the other hand, we have our LinkedIn. Do you have any observations on what people can do to make this align better, and what role the profiles might play, like LinkedIn or GitHub?
I think a LinkedIn, whenever I was looking for a job, my LinkedIn was pretty much a carbon copy of my resume. But the difference is when you download a LinkedIn profile, it just has all these borders down the side, down the left hand side. It just looks a little bit messy. It doesn't give your address, your phone number. It's a lot of information that's just not there. um but it's all that sort of stuff that I would be adding in, adding value, your responsibilities, your achievements, your specific projects, and of course, your education, your certs, your GitHub, if you're on Kaggle, if you have any personal blogs, anything you're particularly passionate about, if you write about data, if you have a YouTube channel where you share some content that you've created, have all that there and make it there to be in view.
Okay, understood. Um, turning, kind of like turning the tables or giving it over to you. So is there something else you would like to share with the audience in terms of hiring practices around computer vision that they should pay attention to?
Um, yeah, so I suppose one thing that I would say is you've got to think of it, and the way I think of it is when someone's looking for a position, you've got your CV, you've got your application then that goes in. So you want to make sure you've got them done. So you want to prepare to write a good CV and then prepare for a good application. Then you've got an interview. You want to prepare for your interview and then do a good interview. What I would also say is, you anyone listening, you guys are most more than likely engineers. You are professionals in your domain. I'm a professional in my domain, and this is things that I would always say I'd recommend. Interview preparation was always trained and taught to me as the most important thing ever. I feel it's worked well. It's led me my entire career. So there's a lot of things that you should be doing, and you can make interviews highly personalized. I would always recommend using the star interview technique if anyone's familiar with that. And then when they're asking you a question, you're linking it back to the key achievements. So again, it's not, hey, do you use Python? Yeah, I'd rate myself a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. I'm excellent, right? So, but what does that actually mean? You want to be talking about how you're creating value using Python. So if you're automating uh, data coming through multiple workflows through different APIs and bringing them into a database, how are you cleaning it? Like, what does that mean? How do you use that data to add value to the business instead of just saying, yeah, I just use Python? And you got to try and think of that for every question that they ask. If they're going to ask you something about Python, deep learning tools, TensorFlow, BI tools, and I would always say, actually practice. People don't practice. I know it sounds silly. Record yourself, listen to yourself, talk to yourself out loud. You got to think Rafa Nadal, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, they train every single day to prepare for one match on the weekend. If you are not preparing for an interview, you're not, unfortunately, going to be as good at interviewing as you think because you're not a professional at interviewing. You haven't practiced. But when you do a lot of practice, you can actually hear yourself where you're getting your star interview technique wrong. But by the time you get in the interview, you can't go back on it, right?
Yes, indeed, Anthony. I can also particularly imagine that in your role, this could sometimes actually be frustrating. So you have a candidate, and actually on paper it all looks great, and then they have to go to the interview, and then actually, indeed, this is important that you get yourself ready for this day. And I think also what you're trying to say there, it's not good enough to say, oh, I'll just go to a couple of interviews and I'll get better over time. Kind of
Yeah,
like, so the practice, of course, practice makes perfect, and fluking a couple of interviews will also teach you something. But you're actually saying, do your homework, get prepped, practice your lines, and know what you're talking.
100%. Yeah. And
Okay.
again, if anyone wants to see a PDF or of actually a YouTube video that's like 35 minutes long where I go through those points individually, I'm happy to share that around too.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. So actually also our audience, they see our name. So you can find Anthony Kelly on LinkedIn through this video if you like, no problem at all. Our time for today actually is up. We've done our half hour. So this is the weekly Wednesday Live by the AI Guild to the highest standard. Thank you very much, Anthony, for being with us today. We look forward to having you again sometime. And I hope everybody's enjoyed it, and goodbye for now.
Excellent. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.